Greetings and salutations. Unfortunately, this is my second attempt at uploading this video. Hopefully the audio isn't too bad. I've done my best to try to mix it to a proper level that would be bearable to one's ears without so much of the peaking, hopefully. I've been told as long as I avoid hard T's and hard P's, I should be okay. Anyways, so in the last video we covered an NPC party, and in this one we are going to be covering part of the setting itself proper. Now I started with the city, and then I ended up kind of building out from there just a tad bit. As you can see, I've kind of copy pasted a few things over, as well as added a small hex map with each hex equaling about 6 miles. Corid is at the center with a few different places, such as the Drag Marsh over here, the Ironside Hills, the Umberland Mountains, the Wilderness Camp, which is actually where the majority of the people from Corid actually live. This is actually based off of a real life thing. Pardon me, that popped up. But this is based off of a real life thing. For those of you unaware, a lot of people that live in my neck of the woods grew up or were the children of people who grew up in the mining camps of Harlan County. And so that having that little bit of historical reference is kind of what I was getting at with the Wilderness Camp. Having a working camp in which people actually lived. Of course, I'm not going to go the same route that the Harlan coal mining camps did, where they didn't even really pay you real actual money. They paid you with money that was useless outside the camps, so as to keep people in a very strange pseudo form of indentured servitude to some degree, even though they were receiving payment, they weren't. But anyway, and of course the Umberland Forest, what I suggest for people is to add some natural features surrounding the adventure area. In this case, because Corid is kind of the center, we added a forest, we added some plains to the south, we added the drag marsh that we covered, some hills, some mountains, and we added a wilderness camp. We have a description of Corid, just me kind of riffing. A lot of this stuff won't even be relevant to the players. And as you can see, I've made a map from GIMP, displaying buildings. 1 square equals about 10 feet. So I make a small note on the economy about how, pardon me for a second. Alright, apologies. That visitors do not have to pay to merely visit Corid. However, there will be a tax collected every month if they decide to basically settle down. If somebody is doing business like a caravan, a traveling merchant, or something like that, they have to pay a tax. If someone sells their goods in town, they have to pay a portion of that sale in taxes. So that was to hopefully keep things as bookkeeping light as possible, because it is presumed that your level 1 players won't necessarily have that particular problem, although I've been surprised before. So because I try my best to never restrict player agency as long as it maintains some form of verisimilitude. Now, of course, we are going to refer to that. Number 1 and 10 are gatehouses where guards are stationed. No big deal. Nothing really special about them. We have the jail, which this is the older spelling of jail, in case you didn't know. So you have a basic kind of justice system put about, because, of course, when you have a party that is going to have a thief, for example, the thief is already kind of skirting the boundaries of the law, depending on how the player decides to play them. But by and large, for the most part, generally speaking, thieves are always kind of skirting the line, right? And, because of the nature of their job and the nature of their skills. I mean, for goodness sake, you have pickpocketing. So I kind of do a little thing where, like, thieves that are caught are generally going to be a prison and fined the first time, fined and then expelled for the second offense, and then a third time there is no third time, if you get what I mean. The reason being because players being what they are, again, don't try to tell them not to do it, but also put some things in there to kind of keep them in check. If you are continually failing in your pickpocketing skills on the same person over and over and over and over again, well, then it makes no sense if there's no kind of retribution for that action, right? So, anyways, the guards for the most part have remained unnamed. However, you do have, like, I've named very key people, like, because as you can see, most of these guys are level 2 fighters, so level 2 mooks. The point being, there's going to be a lot of them. Not super strong, but strong enough and with decent amount of equipment to swarm a party of 3 to 8 players. I've never ran more than 5 myself, but I have heard of people having like 8 people at a session. So with that, and plus you also have to take into account retainers. So that was number 2. So there's the jail right there. Number 3 is a guard post. This is basically where the patrollers are going to be coming back and forth, making the rounds as they go about Corid, kind of watching the streets. And it just kind of gives a few details, but not much. This guy's a pretty rough fighter right here. Number 4, because this has to do with the dungeon, that is the entrance to the catacombs itself. And right across from that is the church. And we'll come back down here. The entrance to the catacombs, very brief, kind of explains a little bit of the setup that we gave before. Again, nothing set in stone. I've already revised this quite a few times, right? And so then you have the Church of Corid, which really has a bunch of nothing acolytes kind of walking around, just a few NPCs that function more as normal men than they do as actual combatants. So I didn't really give them stats. There are a couple of level 1 clerics that are there kind of like bodyguards. I'm sorry, there's 3 of them. So there's a trio of them. There's a 4th one that is a level 2 cleric who knows Cure Light Wounds. And then, of course, the main man, the head honcho, Father Athanasius Alexandrus, who is a level 5 cleric. He's kind of an older man. He doesn't equip armor. He's retired from adventuring. And give me a second. Pardon, I'm trying to avoid coughing into the mic. He knows 2 Cure Light Wounds. He has them prepared. He knows, of course, a cleric has access to basically all the spells that they possibly can at their level. But I'm talking in terms of what he has prepared for the day. And so this cleric, in addition to being another bodyguard for him, is also going to be his helper, Cure Light Wounds. So you have 3 slots basically dedicated to Cure Light Wounds. That way, if your party really got heated, plus like they'll all heal the any kind of injured persons within the keep or within the town. It's not a keep; it's a small village. But he of course knows Hold Person and Spiritual Hammer just in case things really go down. Now let's talk about his name real quick, Father Athanasius Alexandrus. For those of you like me who are church history nerds, you're probably thinking that sounds familiar. That's true. He's based, like, his personality wise is based off of Athanasius of Alexandria, who was a key figure in the Nicene Council. He was the one that wrote that he awoke one day to find that the world had turned Arian, and he had lost his bishop job in the Church of Alexandria, as they of course were no exception to the fact that Arianism had crept in. And so, to make a long story short, he ended up getting, whenever the whole Arian thing was denounced and everything like that, he got his job back, of course, along with many other people. So, just as an aside, you can rip off names from history, just to help kind of provide you something. Now, obviously, like, his name kind of sticks out from everybody else's, so I need to come up with a reason for that. Could be that he came from a different land, which is most likely the case, but, obviously I chose this name particularly because it sounded very churchy, because, of course, it does. But, do what you want to do. That's just kind of how I help with my names. Now, this one I'm a little bit proud of, the Misspelled Mage, because this has been a featured tavern in almost every game I've ever run. The Misspelled Mage is it's a play on words. Do you get it? Do you get it? Anyway, the Misspelled Mage is a tavern, and it's an inn. So, and it's ran by Leonard Strongman. And, your names can be literally just as simple as that. It's people are, from my personal experience, most players are not going to be scrutinizing the names that much, because we kind of take it for granted that most names, especially within like kind of medievalish settings, they're kind of like, they were always simple, like Smith's son, or Smith itself, or John's son. Even my very own last name happens to be Gaelic for son of little Patrick. So, like, that's just a naming convention that we kind of take for granted. And bonus points to anybody who can figure that one out. But then again, my wife has appeared on my streams before, and she keeps her real name up. So it wouldn't exactly be very hard. Anyway, of course, threw in a blacksmith. Pardon me again. Of course, throw in a blacksmith. You need to have a blacksmith, right? He's another one that comes from Marveth. He moves to Corid for a simpler way of life. Applies his trade, Then we have Greedy Gus. Greedy Gus is general goods. He's going to be the fencer. He's considered a swindler. His prices are not totally outrageous, but he does try to charge an extra 10%. And tries to get things at a 10% discount, because he's trying to turn a profit. You can haggle with this guy. The best you can expect is to get like a 2% discount, or, well, like, he'll charge you only 2%, and he'll buy things off of you for a 2% discount, because this dude is selling things in addition to fencing, so things you find in the dungeon or just basic supplies, he'll sell and buy them from you. But, obviously he's a store owner, he's a business owner who runs a business without trying to make profit, right? So he's going to maintain that he's going to try to turn some kind of profit. He is, of course, armed, and I put a little thing in there basically explaining that he is a fence. Do not try to sell him out, because he is tied to a guild. You can draw the ire of the Thieves Guild if you try to turn him in. Plus, he has contacts and connections that'll bail him out of trouble anyway. You could kill him, but, I mean, again, he's got those ties. Now, Justin Ledrick, the mayor, he's a magic user. I decided, it made a lot of sense for, well, you would think it would make a lot of sense for a politician to be a smart man, but then again, look at the year we're in, right? I've yet to meet a smart politician. Well, there's been a couple. Anyway. Haha, politics. It made sense to me that a smart man would be a mayor, like, because, bookkeeping and this, that, and everything else. And he's also a former traveling magic peddler. So, like, he's got connections to the Mages Guild. So, like, basically, if he don't have it in his spell book for your low-level magic user to learn from, he can more likely order it, get a hold of it in some way, shape, or form. And then, of course, he's got bodyguards. But Hot diggity dang! Look at that HP on a level 5 magic user. That's still pretty dang good. That's not as high as his bodyguards, who are one level less than him, but still, I mean, 16 on a magic user. This dude almost rolled perfect. He rolled, if I remember right, he rolled 3 4s on the D4, and he rolled 3 4s, bringing it to 12, and then he rolled, I think, 2 2s. So he rolled pretty decently. Now, that's the other gatehouse. I touch on religion. The religion is being built up around basically what I know about the dungeon so far, which we'll get to. We have the drag plague being touched upon. Rats and stuff. And it says consult the core rules about rats and the diseases they cause. Because you didn't know, all rats have a 5% chance of spreading a disease. So the plague has a 1% chance each week of affecting someone in the village. Once someone comes into contact with the disease, this percentage goes up to 5% per week until the people who have contracted it have passed their saves. Although I'm thinking about tweaking this because this does seem like a little bit too much bookkeeping. I like the idea. I think it lends itself well to making it seem like a real world and being immersive, but at the same time I don't want it to be a nightmare to bookkeep for. I have slogged myself down in campaigns like that before. However, when we get to the Dragmarsh, the Dragmarsh is where this disease is coming from. Journeying through the Dragmarsh has a 10% chance per day for the disease to affect those exploring the Dragmarsh. That's because this place is full of the rotting dead corpses that the town has thrown in there instead of burying them in the catacombs. They've elected to take these bodies, 6 miles outside of town to throw them in a swamp, basically. So now, rumors. I'm still working on this. It's based off of what I know about the dungeon so far. I could show you the rumors I got so far, but first I want to touch on this. This is basically just a little disclaimer, right? So, rumors in Corid, and this is, because I'm inspired a lot by mostly Morgan's Fort, because that was my first interaction with a rumor table. But then, of course, I started running the Keep on the Borderlands, and so I've gotten, I like this mechanic a lot. Shoot, one of my oldest and most well-received videos on my channel is the Rumor Through a Grapevine video, where I talk about, it's a dying mechanic that needs to come back. This is why, because it lends itself so well to sandbox play, because you can literally, you're not placing rails, you're kind of pointing directions, but it's up to the players to go after that or not. And if they don't like that, or if they don't believe the rumor, they can continue to buy drinks or buy somebody else drinks or something like that, however they want to approach this to kind of get more information out of it. But obviously it's not a fleshed out rumor table yet, but rumors in Corid exist primarily to offhandedly point players in the direction of points of interest. The setting is designed to be a sandbox, and while the Catacombs of Corid adventure is intended is underlined, is the intended first adventure. That's not to say that it absolutely will be the first adventure. Never railroad the players into doing something that they didn't choose. Of course, if you advertise the game with the promise that the players will start in the dungeon and the players are fine with it, then feel free to just skip the whole role-playing in Corid and move on to the adventure. An alternative setup will be provided in the situation, but if you want to run this as a sandbox, which is the intent of this author, simply consult the rumor tables. Now, this comes from 2 different styles of play that I've done in the past. I have done the whole rumor table thing. I've also had people tell me, like at session 1, I want to just go ahead and get into the dungeon. And if I felt like it made sense for them to know the location of the dungeon, I could go ahead and start them there. It would make sense in this case for people coming into Corid to have heard about the catacombs, and because the dungeon, for goodness sake, is literally directly underneath town. So it's there. I'm going to reword this little section a bit because I kind of typed some ideas a little clumsily, but I will. Again, nothing is set in stone quite yet. So here's the rumors I got so far. I only have 7, and this is based off of what I know from the dungeon. I'm going to tweak some of these so that we have some false and some trues and stuff like that. The mayor, Justin Ledrick, is a magic user and made a living off of the trade of magical treasures. That's the first rumor. Sounds of moving people can be heard under Corid in the middle of the night. It sounds like people working. The sound of a horn being blown can sometimes be heard at night. It sounds like it is echoing up beneath the village. And I'll explain that one here a little bit, since this is kind of like a peek behind the scenes, right? So, number 4, short bow belonging to an expert archer is stored somewhere in the catacombs. Number 5, there is a rat problem in Corid. They're probably coming from the Dragmarsh. Number 6, traveling through the Dragmarsh can make one dangerously ill. Number 7, the church placed a sword in the catacombs long ago inside a stone tablet. So this is basically, so far all these are true. I need to try to reword these so that they'll seem false, or at least partially true. You know what I mean? So I'm going to talk about number 3 here, because that might seem like a new one to you guys. I had decided, because in case you didn't know, there's a particular magical item in the treasure section of Basic Fantasy that is called the Horn of Doom, and it does reanimate dead, and I thought it sounded cool. There's also one particular thing on the first level that only comes out at night, because I've maintained that I need to make note in my rumor table, but I want that to be a surprise for my next video. But anyway, it's been about 22 minutes, so I think it's a good stopping point. As always, guys, take care. God bless. I'll see you on the other side, and thank you for your patience.